members. Okay. So far so good. We're on again.
Golden? Okay. All right.
You
Moving-
have to drive back to Clarkson tonight? Oh, you probably should.
Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you again.
Thanks for
Appreciate
I
it.
will send an email to the mayor, to the city clerk, as well as you, that I have email along with you, basically summarizing what I said, so that you can't say Andy said, didn't say. But I'll tell you what, you guys put together a good plan, share it with us, and we'll partner.
All right,
Just
thank you.
send your email to council@harrington.city and it'll get to all the council members.
Got it?
Okay,
All right.
Thank you.
guys.
Thanks, Andy.
for coming in.
Drive safe.
See ya.
Drive careful.
Okay, Johnson Family Towing Lease. I'm still trying to get a hold of those guys. I was gone last week after we met. It'll go on the next meeting. Hopefully everything will be either updated and or resolved, but I don't have any update on that at this point.
Question, Mr. Mayor, did we ever check in insurances as far as the living quarters in there?
No, I haven't, but that was due to our talk about, as far as somebody residing there,
Correct.
that was just due to our discussion last week about how we wanted to go about that in the lease.
Because if I remember right, when we looked at the lease, it would be a violation of the lease terms
Correct?
without prior written consent.
Yep.
And my concern was, how does our insurance view that? Is it a detriment to the city? Are we at risk for something? How are we protected in that manner going forward? It would be, is my whole concern about that.
Sure.
Not necessarily that they're living there, but
I can definitely still check. I can still get a hold of them.
Can we clarify, am I billing for Scott's charges, or do you guys wanna discuss further? Okay. You want me to do it?
I would for now, especially.
Okay,
status quo.
okay,
As long as he agrees and you agree.
okay. I don't know if he wants me to.
How would we leave it?
As is, Scotty's contracted with, or,
Yeah.
yes, Casey, thank you.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, I like that. Fine.
I mean, if we can come to an agreement that's different where he works directly for us and, I mean, for everything to where we pay him hours, then
Yeah.
that's fine too. But I think just for now.
Okay. Well, let's figure it out again, and let's just say we'll look at it again after there's turnover.
Seems to be the general consensus, huh?
Well, I mean, why hash things out if, you know?
Just
Yeah,
gonna
I
rehash
agree.
them out.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
He'll have to deal with it longer.
the dynamics are
Number
gonna,
one on my list.
That'll be, yeah,
So
then
if you
he'll have
want
to
new
answer for
flower
his
pots and
consequences.
painted lines, dream on. Wastewater treatment is number one.
Yeah.
that's
that
number two.
simple. Pardon me?
It's number two.
Sometimes. By the time it gets down to your house, yeah.
All right, let's keep moving. I don't have much new for the 22 budget. The one thing that I wanted to note that I worked on in the last couple of days for that is our salaried employees. So one of the requirements, I don't know, so say for the treasurer and the librarian especially, where those numbers originated from, but his minimum wage has gone up. Obviously, like Justin or we were talking about last meeting, has jumped multiple, 4 or 5% a year. Those numbers haven't kept up. So what we need to do that I'm working on now, you will see in the next revision of the budget, is that they need to be paid at least minimum wage. So their hours worked weekly has to be at least minimum wage. I know Jerry had some trouble with entering some numbers into L&I on the computer, and then I was trying to read up on it some more tonight, but that's going to be something that you guys will see change. The one question I had about that portion of it was, do we want to use the monthly salary that we have now. Thank you, Casey.
Thanks, Casey.
I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I have it almost as long of a drive as Andy's. I'll look for the water samples, cause I can access Century, so I'll look at that. See what's up.
Jerry just printed it out. They've been doing.
Oh, good,
they've
well,
been
that's
doing the,
good.
So all the hubbub for nothing.
No, I look at it all the time for my other,
Yeah,
So-
we paid the bill every
Right,
month.
no,
and I'll make sure
this is
that
not the
everything
place,
else got
but,
that.
um,
Everything else got
so,
covered.
two things, from a budgetary standpoint, if we budget and we say we're gonna pay somebody, just like we did with the enforcement person, it's gotta work into that, so if it's the salary that we have into that, and we've made raises, slight raise, then it's like, okay, so if that only accounts for 10 hours, it accounts for 10 hours at minimum wage, like.
Sure. And that
Um,
was more my question, which way we wanted to go about it. The code compliance wasn't too much of a deal because I don't ever remember seeing a set amount of hours. But like for the librarian, that comes to mind. She has her hours that she works per week. Those hours that are currently worked versus the monthly salary doesn't make minimum wage. So do we want to go more towards the same hours at minimum wage, or keep the salary amount and then work that into that? Like, which way would you guys rather see that go?
Well, I think the treasurer in regardless of what Michael said last week about him staying on, the treasurer for 2022 is probably gonna be more
Yeah.
hours than in 2023, only because they're ramping up, right? They're gonna be extra, somebody brand new to the spot, it's gonna take them longer than and Michael's been doing. He's been on the council, his wife did it, and he did it, so for him it was pretty, and he worked with his wife on it before, so he slid right into it.
Right.
Super easy. The next treasurer, even just to ramp up, is probably gonna be a little bit more. I've asked Michael before how many hours it was, and it seemed like it wasn't more than like 10 hours a month. So that's $328. That's $32 an hour.
All right.
And I think of 2020, the library was closed for many months
Right.
in 20, and we still paid that. I don't know if services were being done outside of that or not. I don't know. So, but again, if we limit it to the hours, then then that means the library's open 2 hours a week instead of
Right.
4. Or, that hurts our community. I
And then
think.
same with the treasurer for the new treasurer. I don't want to limit those hours so that they feel like, well, I'm getting paid this amount, but I only have 6 hours to do my job, and then end up having to put in either 6 or 8 or 10 more hours, or at 6 hours just saying, well, I'm done. So that's to your point.
Currently, there's no overtime
But
on those?
I thought it was different because when I was the mayor, my salary wasn't as much as yours was,
Right.
and I worked maybe at $2 an hour
Right.
based on that salary. And I think there's like an exempt. This is not an employer type of position. So
From what I read, if you can do that, you can pay less than minimum wage, but you have to have some exemption, some
I
things
bet
signed.
the mayor and the treasurer are different than the librarian because those people are elected, and the librarian is an employee.
Could
so,
very well be right.
I think that's going to be a separation.
And that could be, I'll have to check that. I was just trying to read L&I and those things, but
The current figure, can you just use that cash amount that we currently pay and just raise it your 5%?
some
the-
will work, some will not.
Well, I think the biggest one though is going to be just the librarian as the employee. The other is elected officials. Same with the councilman. We don't get 0. We get less than minimum. We get less than minimum wage.
Sure.
But as an employee, the clerk, the librarian,
Yeah, which the librarian would be the only one. I mean,
yeah, because the treasurer is
obviously.
elected. It's
Yeah.
elected is different. You still have to count the hours because I told that to Bunny. I remember Bunny and I talked about that. But
I will
yeah,
check into that part though, being elected. I didn't even think about that. So,
depending on how the budget plays out, I'm not opposed to, because I think keeping the library open is important.
yeah.
The same hours that we have now, on the flip side, I think that's gonna come out of the library budget of, can we buy as many books as we bought in the past then,
Sure.
or something like
That
that.
would be my opinion. Keep the same hours and then just make that pay work. I mean, some things are obviously gonna have to be adjusted, as you're saying, in the library budget. But my opinion would be to not cut any hours. Just make the wage correct, the
Can-
monthly.
Can I get this clarification? Jerry, right now, if somebody came in on tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock and they wanted to check out a book, are they allowed to? So, okay, so we don't necessarily, the library then is open regardless,
Yeah.
whenever the so, I would also, if you haven't got the input from the librarian or the library committee, is to say what's more important, like, do we want the money, we only, again, we have a pool, right, we have a pie, do we wanna be able to buy books? Or whatever that fund, or is it, cause if we can check out books now without the library technically being open with the librarian here, maybe that's more important to them, so
Okay.
I would ask their input of what, but to make sure that we are paying them the minimum wage that we're necessary
Sure.
to pay.
Okay, that's really the only update that I guess, input that I wanted that has changed since we talked last week.
Well, then Nathan and I talked to, last night at the fire commission meeting with the commissioners about the property tax thing, cause last year we noticed that we think our property tax fell to the city's share when the fire district came on board. And that wasn't never the intent. The intent was we asked the citizens to pay a tax for services they were already receiving and not being charged for. That was our tough sell, and the fire commissioners said, yeah, that was the intent, and so now we have to go back to the assessor, because we think it's the assessor who thought that the city was already collecting that money and just moved it from the city to the fire district, which was not really the case. So that's, I don't know
Need to double
if
check.
it's back pay or
Yeah.
not, but it was last year, and then it would be this year going forward. So we, the city, as a conglomerate, have to figure that out. But the fire district, and Ron called me again today because he checked some numbers with Ann, and they're very supportive and have no problem backing the city up with the assessor to say this is what the intent was. But we think between our conversation last night with that body, that maybe it's the assessor that misconstrued what was supposed to happen. And that could affect our budget
Yeah.
quite a bit, $15,000 maybe.
Any other budget stuff for you
That
guys?
was
Any-
budgeted for fire though, wasn't it? That's what it was 2 years ago when you guys were explaining it.
We put money away, the city put their own money away out of our, like, general fund or current expense.
It was supposed to go.
It went to our own fund to pay for that maintenance, to pay for the replacement of that fire truck that the city owned at the time. But we weren't collecting a tax of the citizens for any fire protection. And we didn't have a contract with the fire district where we paid them anything. And so where this all came about was, well, they said, okay, we want you to start paying us. And we said, okay, well, let's go out and talk to the citizens and actually add it to the tax roll, so it's not the city that's paying it, it's the citizens that are getting that service. And the fire district said, sure, we'll support you, we'll go out there together with you guys, and as we talk to the public, that's what the message was.
So what do you expect that 15,000 that we were getting, where do you think it should go? Is it set aside for fire?
It was not set aside for
No.
anything. We didn't have anything like that. There was no, if you look at your tax statement, there was no fire protection prior to 2021 being billed to you as a city of Cleveland citizen. And this tax statement, 2021, if you look at it, it has Lincoln County Fire Protection number 6. And it shows their 0.082% or whatever that number is, that levy amount. So the city just never, again, the city just paid that, whatever we paid, we just paid it out of our own pocket without having a separate, we didn't have a levy to the citizens for a line item for fire.
You paid for each fire.
You paid by on call,
Yeah.
per call.
And we gave the fire district free water, free sewer, and free garbage, and now they're paying for that.
So how do we calculate how much we owe the fire department?
We don't owe the fire department anything. It's really that we think the assessor owes us money for our property taxes. So really, it's only it's not the fire district's fault. They're clear in their way and they're getting their money like they're supposed to. It's the city though that got the short end of the stick. And so we're trying to figure that out.
We're gonna check numbers and then check back with the assessor. I mean, talked to the
And-
assessor both years. However, we think that they have the wrong idea of what the goal of that annexation was, as
And
far
were
as
you talking
tax
about
goes.
just 15,000 for that year of transition, or is that 15,000 every year that we're not getting that we're supposed to?
I think it's going forward. We're
Yeah,
supposed to get it. Starting 2021. This last year is when that annex started. So we got cut out this last year. And it came, Nathan and I talked about it this time last year when we did that resolution. And then Nathan went and talked to him and the guy said, no, I got it taken care of. So Nathan's okay. But it came up again and I'm like, wait a second. And so we just started talking
So
about
I've talked to both the fire district and the assessor both years, and I said, just to be clear, this is how it is. And
But the fire district before thought maybe they understand what our thing is, so they're like, yeah, we'll go talk to them with you
Yeah.
and support what that.
and it's
that
correct on their end, so nothing's affecting the fire district. They said, no, everything's kosher, but I think once we cleared up even more so what the question was, then, so I'm gonna check the numbers and then talk to the assessor again to make sure.
Okay.
But that's a pretty good chunk of change, so.
What are you gonna propose to the assessor?
I'm just gonna look at our numbers, our previous year's numbers and current ones, and look at the difference to make sure that the thought that what we think is happening is actually happening. And then if it is, then my proposal would be, if at all possible, to get that money back, both retroactive and continuing forward both.
At the very least, to get it correct, at least it's only one. Potentially, it could be just 1 year.
Yeah.
So at the very least, though, and the way we budgeted last year, we budgeted with the numbers that we were given. So the city, we didn't have it to begin with, but going forward, again, that's money that's in our, we have the right to, but I think it's the way the assessor is allocating, or thought that we were collecting money for a fire district when we weren't. And so just kind of transferred it from our line item to their line item. So going forward, can we just get our money back? Can you just give us what's rightfully ours to go forward? But, I mean, the citizens, the same thing. My tax bill went up last year. It didn't go down because of the fire district, which is fine, because that's what we voted for. But there's a chunk somewhere then that the city, it's like it's sitting in the county
Where
or
did it
something.
go?
Yeah.
And I want to just make sure that that's the case.
What was the earmark from the county to the city? Just
So the city, we have this, like, we saw that, I think you saw the worksheet that you guys did, I wasn't here, the resolution at the special meeting. There's this worksheet that the county gives us a number for the assessed value and gives us the numbers to plug into. So that number though, that plugged into, I think is missing the percentage amount that now is going to the fire district. So it wouldn't cost the citizens anymore, like, it's not on the citizens, they've already paid, we've already paid it, it's wherever it went to,
where they dispersed it.
yeah.
We think that instead of an additional tax that went to the fire district, that it was in sense taken out of the cities and went to the fire district. I mean, whether it was unintentionally or intentionally by the assessor's office, they thought that was the goal. That's essentially what happened.
Both I think our resolutions prove our point, and then having the commissioners with knowing that context and saying, this is what if you misread it, no problem. We're telling you as elected officials at the commission office, telling you elected officials at the city, this is what the intent was.
Okay.
Peter, you're not gonna be here next week, right?
No, correct.
Okay.
What is going on over there?
Or the 29th.
Well, I just would suggest if we can,
Oh,
to send this out ahead of time. I mean, as much, and
Yep.
like, I think Stephen was gonna try to help him, but if you can look at it, and if there's questions that you have,
Look at the budget.
whatever we, yeah, like,
Yeah.
or even the lease agreement, or any of the things that we're gonna bring up. I mean, I know you can't be here, but if you can at least, if you get an opportunity to see it, then you can let Stephen or Nathan or Jerry know, hey, I have reservations, or, I mean, just so we know what you're thinking on certain things.
We
Okay.
should be able to call him in.
Oh, you can call him, okay,
As
Can
long
you-
as he gets his iPad on Wi-Fi, I'll just FaceTime him.
okay.
As long as I what, get,
We'll cover it.
okay.
Okay, I don't
Um,
have anything additional for budget
Any
stuff.
public-
Not at this time.
Public comment, I guess.
Public comment? Nothing?
Make a motion, move to adjourn.
Okay. Motion to adjourn at 8:36. Have a second?
Second. Stephen beat me.
it's a tie.
Okay, motion by Justin, seconded by Steven. All in favor of adjourning at 8:36?
Aye.